Welcome to Poets West, coming to you from KSER 90.7 FM in Everett, Washington. This is your host, J. Glenn Evans, and we bring you poems, stories, music, and occasionally an interview. In today's program, we are acknowledging Nakba, the Arabic word for catastrophe. Nakba commemorates the ethnic cleansing of Palestine that began in 1947 and continues to the present day. Poet, playwright, and human rights activist Ed Mast organized a brief play for radio called Planning for Nakba, What They Really Said. Ed Mast, as narrator, will introduce the piece and the names of the Zionist leaders who participated in the planning of Nakba.
Planning the Nakba, What They Really Said, a Credible Threat audio project. On November 29, 1947, the United Nations suggested giving 55% of historic Palestine to a minority Jewish population for a Jewish state. Palestinian Arabs rejected this as unjust. The Zionist Jewish leadership publicly accepted the UN suggestion, but in fact they had other plans. According to Israeli historian Ilan Pappé, the Zionist leadership, led by David Ben-Gurion, held a series of secret meetings starting in December 1947 to determine what to do next. David Ben-Gurion, later the first Prime Minister of Israel, was at this time executive head of the World Zionist Organization and head of the Jewish Agency. In December 1947, Ben-Gurion called together leaders from the Jewish Agency, the Jewish National Fund, the Zionist paramilitary Haganah, intelligence units, and the elite commando force, the Palmach. All of the following quotations are from members of those secret meetings. All these quotes are from historical documents and from the book The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine by Ilan Pappé. David Ben-Gurion, December 3rd. 1947.
There are 40% non-Jews in the areas allocated to the Jewish state. This composition is not a solid basis for a Jewish state, and we have to face this new reality with all its severity and distinctness. Such a demographic balance questions our ability to maintain Jewish sovereignty. Only a state with at least 80% Jews is a viable and stable state.
Igal Alon, commander of the Palmach commando units.
What is to be done with the Palestinian population?
Such a reality, the Palestinian majority in the land, will compel the Jewish settlers to use force to bring about the dream, a purely Jewish Palestine.
Yitzhak Rabin, later Prime Minister of Israel, at this time Chief Operations Officer of the Palmach commando units.
I agree. It is essential to drive the inhabitants out.
They can either be mass arrested or expelled. It is better to expel them.
Ezra Danin, Haganah Intelligence.
Violent actions will terrify them and will render help from the Arab world useless.
What do you mean by violent actions?
Destroying the traffic, buses, lorries that carry agricultural products and private cars, sinking their fishing boats in Jaffa, closing their shops, and preventing raw materials from reaching their factories.
How will they react?
Initial reaction may be riots, but eventually they will understand the message.
Yosef Weitz, Jewish National Fund.
This is not enough. Is it not now the time to get rid of them? Why continue to keep in our midst those thorns at a time when they pose a danger to us? The only solution is to transfer the Arabs from here to neighboring countries. Not a single village or a single tribe must be let off. Only after this transfer will the country be able to absorb millions of our brothers. There is no other solution. Transfer does not only serve one aim, to reduce the Arab population, it also serves a second purpose, which is to evict land now cultivated by Arabs and to free it for Jewish settlement. Takeover of Arab lands is a sacred duty. Without transfer, there will be no Jewish state. Without transfer, there will be no Jewish state.
Moshe Sharet, later Prime Minister of Israel, at this time with the Jewish Agency.
We will only have enough troops to defend ourselves, not to take over the country.
If we receive in time the arms we have already purchased, and maybe even receive some of that promised to us by the UN, we will be able not only to defend ourselves, but also to inflict death blows on the Syrians in their own country, and take over Palestine as a whole. We can starve the Arabs of Haifa and Jaffa. We can face all the Arab forces. I am in no doubt of this.
But actions such as the unprovoked and barbaric attack on Qisas will prompt quiet Arabs to act against us.
Eliyahu Sasson, Jewish Agency Political Department.
In all the areas where we committed no provocative actions, in the coastal plain and the Negev, the atmosphere is calm. But not in the Galilee.
Ezra Danian again.
It is true that the villagers show no wish to fight, and the Arab liberation forces are confining themselves to the areas reserved for a Palestinian state.
Yes, I believe the majority of the Palestinian masses accept the partition as an accomplished fact and do not believe it is possible to overcome or reject it. The decisive majority of them do not want to fight us, despite the trickle of militant volunteers coming in. The people themselves seem eager to return to normalcy.
Palti Sela, Haganah Intelligence.
Normalcy is the rule. Agitation is the exception. If these people are to be expelled, it cannot be done as retaliation for any aggression on their part.
Igal Adin, Haganah, Head of Operations.
We need to abandon the term retaliation. This is not what we're doing. This is an offensive, and we need to initiate preemptive strikes. No need for a village to attack us first.
Yitzhak Sadeh, Palmach Commander.
We were wrong to initiate only retaliations. Aggression is the mood and mode now.
Moshe Dayan, Haganah General Staff.
Our action against Qisas ignited the Galilee, and this was a good thing.
Igal Alon again.
We should have been more aggressive. We could have taken Jaffa easily by now and should have attacked the villages around Tel Aviv. We have to go for a series of collective punishments, even if there are children living in the houses. A call for peace will be weakness. We need to expand into areas that have been quiet for too long.
We have the upper hand. It is time to inflict collateral damage. Every attack must end with occupation, destruction, and expulsion. No need to distinguish between innocent and guilty. We should start using a new term, defensive aggression.
We need a clear directive to the troops.
Gad Machnes, Haganah Intelligence.
They are still blowing up a house here and a house there.
A small reaction does not impress anyone. A destroyed house, nothing. Destroy a neighborhood and you begin to make an impression.
There is a need now for strong and brutal reactions. We need to be accurate about timing, place, and those we hit. If we accuse a family, we need to harm them without mercy, women and children included. Otherwise, this is not an effective reaction. During the operation, there is no need to distinguish between guilty and not guilty.
Over the next several months, Palestinians were systematically driven out of Haifa, sections of Jerusalem, and other cities and villages of Palestine. David Ben-Gurion, in a speech to the Mapai Council in Jerusalem, February 7th, 1948.
When I come now to Jerusalem, I feel I am in a Jewish city. When you enter this city through Lifta and Romema, King George Street, there are no Arabs. In many Arab neighborhoods in the West, you do not see even one Arab. And what happened in Jerusalem and in Haifa can happen in large parts of the country. If we persist, it is quite possible that in the next 6 or 8 months there will be considerable changes in the country, very considerable, and to our advantage. There will certainly be considerable changes in the demographic composition of the country.
By May 15th, 1948, when Israel declared itself a nation, several 100,000 Palestinians had been driven out by Zionist military force. By the end of the war, over 700,000 Palestinians were driven out, over 2/3 of the population, and over 400 Palestinian villages were destroyed. For Palestinians, this was the Nakba, which means catastrophe. Planning the Nakba, what they really said. Credible Threat Audio, including the voices of Vince Balestri, Kenny Cohen, Tim Smith-Stewart, Ricky Coates, Greg Lockridge, Peter Lipman, Jake Harris, David Sandler, David Baum, Hannah Edie, Edward Mast.
Palestinian singer and musician Reem Kalani lives in London and has put to music the poetry of Palestinian poets, as in this poignant song of loss. Reem will first tell you about the song.
Yafa, Jaffa. Jaffa-born poet, mythologist and translator Mahmoud Salim al-Hout, 1917 to 1998, represents the generation that lived through the Nakba, the catastrophe of the expulsion of the Palestinians from their homeland in 1948. Al-Hout wrote this after losing all his manuscripts when fleeing Jaffa. As the lyrics suggest, it left him with painful memories. This rendition is in the time-honored Arabic singing tradition of qasida, an ornamented vocal improvisational form based on a poetic text in classical Arabic. It is sung in free rhythm, and in this case it employs a continuous state of question and answer with Zoe Rahman's taqasim, instrumental improvisations on the piano.
قد جف دمعي فانتحبت دماء متى أراك وهل في العمر من أمدي جف دمعي فانتحبت دما متى أراك وهل في العمر من أمدي كيف الشقيقات كيف الشقيقات وأشواقي لها مدنا كأنها قطع من جنات الخلد.
Ed Mast.
Planning the Nakba, What They Really Said, was made of quotes from Ilan Pappé's book, The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine. It's about what happened between 1947 and 1949. Israeli historian Ilan Pappé, in documenting the planning of the ethnic cleansing of Palestine, had access to newly opened Israeli government and Israeli military archives. After 800,000 Palestinians were driven out by the end of 1948, two-thirds of the Palestinian population, the first thing that the new state of Israel did was put a legal framework in place to stop any of those refugees from returning. And even today, ethnic cleansing continues in the form of illegal Israeli Jewish settlements. It also continues in the form of destruction of habitat, the siege and blockade of Gaza, the imprisonment of the millions of Palestinians in Gaza, the making of their life a large concentration camp, making their livelihood impossible. That also qualifies as a kind of ethnic cleansing.
You're listening to a selection of readings on Nakba, Arabic for catastrophe, or the ethnic cleansing of Palestine that continues to this day. The song in the first half of the program was from Reem Kalani's album Sprinting Gazelle. In the second half of our program, we feature poetry from Palestine. Ed Mast returns to the microphone to talk about the Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish.
Mahmoud Darwish was born on March 13, 1941. He lived in what was then called Palestine. He and his family were driven out of their home and their village in 1948 by the Zionist forces who went on to found the State of Israel. Mahmoud Darwish became not only the poet of the Palestinian people, but one of the major poets of the Arabic language in the 20th and 21st centuries. And he managed to be both a very political poet and a voice for his Palestinian people, but also a very personal poet, developing a very personal, idiosyncratic, colorful way of expressing his very particular way of looking at the world. He wrote love poems to people and stones and the sky and his lost land. And his poetry of exile was always the poetry of separation from his beloved. So he developed imagery that was both very intimate and very expansive and collective. He passed away in 2008. He was a very modern poet, could be very obscure, very difficult to understand, and many people sing his poems as they're working and have memorized them in full and gathered by the thousands to hear him read. He could fill a stadium just by showing up to read a poem. Really, Mahmoud Darwish is the poet that most of us would like to be when we grow up. Who am I without exile? A stranger on the riverbank, like the river, water binds me to your name. Nothing brings me back from my far away to my palm tree, not peace and not war. Nothing makes me enter the Gospels, not a thing. Nothing sparkles from the shore of ebb and flow between the Euphrates and the Nile. Nothing makes me descend from the Pharaoh's boats. Nothing carries me or makes me carry an idea, not longing and not promise. What will I do? What will I do without exile and a long night that stares at the water? Water binds me to your name. Nothing takes me from the butterflies of my dreams to my reality, not dust and not fire. What will I do without roses from Samarkand? What will I do in a theater that burnishes the singers with its lunar stones? Our weight has become light, like our houses in the faraway winds. We've become two friends of the strange creatures in the clouds. and we are now loosened from the gravity of identity's land. What will we do? What will we do without exile and a long night that stares at the water? Water binds me to your name. There's nothing left of me but you. Nothing left of you but me. The stranger massaging his stranger's thigh. Oh, stranger, what will we do with what is left to us of calm and of a snooze between two myths? And nothing carries us, not the road and not the house. Was this road always like this from the start? Or did our dreams find a mare on the hill among the Mongol horses and exchange us for it? And what will we do? What will we do without exile?
Hana Eady is a Palestinian-American actor, playwright, singer, and musician living here in the Northwest.
In the Land of Palestine, a poem by Hana Eady. In the land of Palestine, children fear the morning sun. Just another day facing the gun. The streets are filled with tears and smoke. The skies are dark with burning hopes. In the land of Palestine. في بلاد فلسطين يخاف الأطفال من شمس النهار. في الليل والنهار نار في نار. في الشوارع دخان ودموع. يحرق الصلاة والشموع. في بلاد Palestine. Women die giving birth. Babies lie on black earth. Young soldiers are watching. The world is watching. Numbed, but watching. No concern, no salty tears. Lives are cheap. Nobody cares. No bleeding hearts for the people of Palestine. Every stone is a tombstone.
Meg Sevloff is a Seattle-based voice and film actress and interpreter.
Lina Khalaf Tufaha, Song of a Distant Shore. A thin and tattered prayer rug separates Abu Nasser from the concrete floor. His legs folded under him. He leans forward, his eyes face the doorway, looks past the road outside, stench hanging thick in August heat, flies buzzing in clouds of 5 and 6. In the hut, with concrete floor and ramshackle roof, Abu Nasser nurses arthritis and longing. Nasser has died, so no one brings tea in the afternoon, or asks after his swollen joints, adjusts the pillow at the small of his back, sighs back at his supplications. He has given up his prayer beads since they buried her. His breaking heart crumbled to dust as they lowered her into the camp graveyard. Beautiful as the first day he kissed her, long lashes resting like sleeping butterflies against olive skin. He had touched her forehead before they wrapped her in the white shroud and took her away. He wept and wept till the light left his eyes. Now, in the daytime darkness of his room, the last sight burned into his memory is her headstone, a modest Nasser, 1939 to 2005, born Haifa, Palestine. A thin and tattered prayer rug separates Abu Nasser from the concrete floor. The sounds of the camp outside the room and the crackle of the day's news on the transistor radio are all indecipherable syllables. Settlers, withdrawal, land returned, army pullback. Floating on the tattered prayer rug, in the room without air, in the world without light, in the camp without hope. Abu Nasser reaches a frail arm up the wall and grasps for the gnarled old key there, hanging on a nail. He holds its cool metal to his cheek, the caress of his oldest love. He holds it up to his ear, a conch from a distant seashore, and listens to the song, haunting and beautiful moan of Haifa.
this never-ending night of longing and wondering. My hair has turned to white, my body's ill. So hail my little light, and for us, my precious one. Someday you'll bring my medicine. I know you will.
End mast.
So the Nakba, the ethnic cleansing, continues today, and it's the foundation of the injustice. When you understand that Palestinians were subject then to ethnic cleansing and continue to be subject to it now, you understand that it's actually Palestinians who are defending themselves from ongoing Israeli aggression. Once the State of Israel acknowledges that ethnic cleansing took place, we can begin to work toward equal rights. There are a number of Israeli Jews who are working on this. Zochrot is an Israeli Jewish organization, Zochrot, that devotes itself to acknowledging and researching and understanding what happened in 1948. Ilan Pappé is also working on a number of projects to record more experiences, both of Israelis and of Palestinians who were there in 1948.
You heard a radio play and a selection of poems on Nakba, Arabic for catastrophe. Nakba commemorates the ethnic cleansing of Palestine that began in 1947 and continues to the present day. The music in the second half of the program was a Palestinian lullaby from the album Axis of Evil. After decades of military occupation and suppression of human rights, the resilience of the Palestinian people is remarkable indeed. Activists all over the world, including those in Israel, are doing what they can to make people aware of the terrible injustices being inflicted on the Palestinian people and to work for justice. Peace will come to Palestine only when everyone living there has equal rights. This series is a production of Poets West in the studios of KSER 90.7 FM in Everett, Washington. We welcome your comments and questions. You can contact us through our website, poetswest.com. You will also find everything you want to know about poets and poetry in the Northwest on our website. Again, our website is poetswest.com. That's POETSWEST.com. So until next time, this is J. Glenn Evans for Poets West.